Micah Hale's horse slowed, its hooves dragging, as he caught sight of something sprawled in the dust ahead. The desert, merciless in late summer, shimmered with heat, waves rising like broken glass. This was no mirage. A body lay collapsed by the roadside. Micah yanked the reins tight, his eyes narrowing, heart thudding. At first he thought it was just another soul claimed by the desert's cruelty, but then, against all odds, the figure's chest rose and fell in a shallow, fragile rhythm. She was alive. He dismounted, boots crunching on cracked earth, his breath catching. Before him lay a tall Apache woman, her strong frame smeared with dirt, dried blood, and scars that screamed of brutal punishment. Dark purple welts striped her back and shoulders, marks of a whip wielded with no mercy. Her wrists, raw and red, were still bound with a strip of leather. Micah crouched, his hand hovering over her throat, hesitant. Her pulse fluttered, like a bird teetering on the edge of flight. He scanned the horizon, suspicion clawing at his gut. This could be a trap. The Apache had warned him, time and again, not to meddle in their affairs. But the longer he stood there, the heavier her faint breaths weighed on him. If he left her, the sun would burn the life from her within hours. His jaw tightened, resolute. Micah drew his knife, sharp, glinting, and sliced through the leather bindings. With a grunt, he hauled her across his shoulder. She was heavy, her weight sinking into him with every step through the dust, as though he carried a sack of stone. He draped her across his horse's back, swung up and spurred the animal forward. "Damn it," he muttered, voice rough, kicking the gelding hard. The horse thundered ahead, hooves pounding, dust swirling in their wake. The air reeked of sweat, iron, and scorched sand. Micah didn't dare look back. Whoever had left her to die, they'd know exactly which side he'd chosen. The gates of his ranch groaned as hooves rushed across the boards. He leapt down, heart racing, and carried her inside, laying her gently, almost reverently, on a wool blanket by the hearth. His cabin was simple, timber walls, a sagging roof, the bare bones of survival. But it was shelter, and it was his. He stoked a fire, flames flickering across his weathered face, casting shadows that danced with his unease. He dragged the water bucket closer, pouring the last precious drops, worth more than gold in these dry months, into a bowl. With care, he pressed a damp cloth to her face, wiping away blood and dust, his hand steady but his heart unsteady. Her pulse, faint but stubborn, gave him a flicker of hope. Micah had sworn years ago, after sickness stole his wife and 2 sons, to never entangle himself in anyone's troubles. Their deaths had hollowed him, left him a ghost, fixing fences, tending cattle, speaking to no one, listening only to the lonely wail of the prairie wind. Tonight, though, he'd shattered that vow. The woman, Naima, was unlike anyone he'd ever seen. Broad-shouldered, arms hardened by work and hardship, yet marked by cruelty's lash. She must have broken some law of her people. He didn't know why, only that sheltering her painted a target on his back. The prairie howled as darkness fell, wind driving sand through the gaps in the cabin's walls. Micah added wood to the fire, crouched beside her, and pressed a bowl of water to her lips. She drank in tiny, desperate sips, then collapsed back into unconsciousness. He leaned against the wall, rifle across his knees, eyes heavy but alert. If those who'd abandoned her came to finish the job, they'd find him waiting. Sometime after midnight, a faint sound snapped him awake. Naima sat up, sudden, fierce, her eyes blazing with life. In a heartbeat, her hand shot out, snatching the knife from the stove. firelight glinted off the blade as she raised it, her gaze locked on him. Micah didn't flinch. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his hands. His voice, low and gravelly, cut through the tension. "If you're going to cut me, do it quick. But if you want to live, put the knife down." Her chest heaved, sweat glistening on her forehead. Her eyes darted round the cabin, worn, small, but no prison. She looked back at him. Tall, weathered gray eyes, steady as stone. For a long, breathless moment, nothing moved but the fire's flicker. Then, with a trembling breath, she let the knife clatter to the floor. Her body sagged, spent, as though the fight had drained out of her. Micah picked up the blade, setting it aside with care. Then he offered her the bowl of water again. "Drink," he said softly. "You need it more than I do." Her hand shook as she took it, sipping slowly, her eyes never leaving his. Micah stepped outside, the night air sharp against his skin. He sat on the porch, rifle across his lap, smoke curling from his cigarette. Through the crack of the door, Naima watched him, her mind restless. Each time nightmares tore her from sleep, she saw him there, unmoving, a sentinel carved in stone, and strangely, she felt something she thought she'd lost forever: safety. By dawn, Micah's voice broke the silence, quiet but firm. "You can stay until you're strong again, or you can leave. The choice is yours." She didn't reply, but her fingers clutched the blanket tighter. That was her answer. Days passed. Naima grew stronger, fetching water, patching fences, even cooking a rabbit stew one evening, unasked. Micah watched in silence, marveling at how swiftly her strength returned. One evening, as they sat on the porch, the horizon ablaze with sunset, Naima's voice cut through the quiet. Why did you save me?" Micah exhaled, his eyes on the cracked fields, voice heavy with memory. "Because I couldn't bear to leave you out there. I've buried enough death." She fell silent, then gave the faintest nod. Something in her chest loosened. "Friends, let me pause this tale here. If you felt the weight of the dust, the sting of danger, the ache of loneliness, please hit subscribe, drop a like, share your thoughts below. Your support keeps these stories alive, burning bright as a desert fire. But danger, it was never far. 3 Apache riders appeared at the gate, dust clouds trailing like specters. Their leader's voice rang out, cold as iron. "She is ours. Give her back." Micah stepped forward, rifle in hand, his voice steady. "She's wounded. She stays until she's healed." "She has been cast out," one snarled, eyes flashing. "Keep her, and you're our enemy." Micah's gaze was steel, unyielding. "Then you'll have to go through me." Silence hung heavy, thick as the red dust swirling around the horses. Finally the riders turned, their promise of return lingering in the air. That night Naima helped stack sandbags, barricade windows, sharpen blades. She was no longer a guest. She'd chosen to fight. Days later they returned, not 3, but 20 riders, then 50 with elders. A full circle of horsemen surrounded the ranch, their presence a storm waiting to break. An elder woman's voice rang out, strong as stone. "Naima, last chance. Return and face judgment, or accept exile." Naima stepped forward, scars bright in the sun, her voice fierce. "I will not crawl back. I choose life, life on my own terms," he counsel murmured. Some warriors angry, others silent. At last the elders spoke. She was cast out forever, but no longer hunted. Her fate was bound to Micah now. She trembled, but fire blazed in her eyes. She had chosen herself. That afternoon the sky darkened, and rain fell, the first in months. Heavy, blessed drops pounded the roof. Micah stood on the porch, rain soaking him through. Naima stepped into the yard, lifting her face to the storm, letting it wash away blood and memory. When the clouds cleared, they worked side by side, turning soil, rebuilding fences, raising new walls. By nightfall, the ranch felt renewed, alive with promise. That evening, they sat by a fire outside, the air rich with the scent of damp earth. For the first time in years, Micah didn't feel alone. Naima laid her spear on the ground, a silent vow. Micah lit a cigarette, a faint smile breaking through. Tomorrow, we build a new horse pen. Naima nodded, firelight soft on her face. Strong, peaceful. Sometimes we don't choose where we come from, but we can choose where we stand. And sometimes standing beside someone means defying the whole world. That night, two lost souls built something no storm or war party could erase. Not just a ranch, a home. Thank you, my dear Wild West family, for listening. If this story stirred your heart, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, so you won't miss the next tale of grit, love, and survival.